な名前がいいかな。ドイツ語とかラテン語とか中二病っぽくていいよね。
Well, obviously for a show like this, you should be taking inspiration from the actresses on a certain hub. We opened the second episode of the series with... Oh, come on! You know, you're making this show really hard to talk about. Yeah, I know phrasing. Let's just move on. So, after a little peek into Utena's very wholesome mind, we got a nice bit of visual storytelling with the Tresmagia looking at her and rather cleverly hinting at each of their major character traits. Haruka was just being your standard innocent and pretty naive pink lead who was just happy to see her classmate doing well. Sayo was just focused on her studies and not really seeing what was going on around her. And Karuko just gave a bit of a side glance, possibly starting to suspect Utena's true nature. The latter two magical girls' traits would end up going on full display during this episode, so yeah, pretty smart foreshadowing. What? Y'all don't think I could be a little analytical about a show like this? Well, just shut up and watch. After school, Utena tried to at least somewhat exorcise her wrongdoings by praying at a shrine, even though I'm pretty sure most gods would do this with her donations. Still, I guess they were feeling a little gracious and decided to satiate her needs with a few, magazines. Calm down, Date! No, of course, they'd been laid out by Venelita, who was trying to run a little test on Utena.
Ooh, piece of candy.
And as it just so happened, this was also the shrine that Sal's family owned and that she worked at. Thus, when Utena's powers ended up getting activated because of her lust being built up thanks to the Books of Gentlemen, she was the first magical girl on the scene. This is especially ironic for Utena, who had gotten some moral support from her classmate earlier in the day, and now was being forced to fight, or rather run away from her, with some kind of iffy animation. Though to be fair, they were likely saving it up for this next scene, as she managed to curse a fox mask and turned it into a makeshift blindfold. With that, and even though she could have just have easily run away at this point, she figured it was a good time as any for playtime. Sile did at least try to resist at first.
Use the force, Luke.
And this is what happens when you raise your kids on that modern Star Wars crap. And weirdly enough, even though we're making the poor Hayate censor work extra time today, the voices in this scene were briefly muted. I mean, I guess it was because Sal's performance here was just a little extra raunchy, which, you know, with everything else here, kinda feels pointless, but I guess they wanted to sell a few extra Blu-rays. Anyway, after giving the blue magical girl a relatively lighter punishment, at least compared to the spanking, Utena called it a day, leaving Saya with the promise that they'd do more later.
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit!
Bet you think I'm kidding with that, right? The second half of the episode focused on Utena trying to figure out a name for her evil alter ego, as up until this point, the Tresmagia had just been calling her the Evil General. At the same time, her little partner, aka Blackmailer, decided to exposit about their origins. And kind of ironically, for the character voiced by the leader of the Smile Precure team, Venelita provided a backstory that was kind of similar to the Bad End Generals, in that their race had been persecuted by the supposed good fairies of this story. Thus, they seemed like rather sympathetic victims of prejudice and oppression.
全部嘘だけどね。
Well, at least a fake backstory is better than nothing at all. Meanwhile, the Tresmagia were trying to think up their next course of action, with Haruka proving that even the proper cure with her name was a better planner. And again, nice little bit of visual storytelling here, with Karuko picking up on her teammate, kind of looking forward to their next punishment. Thus, she likely decided to take matters into her own hands, since she couldn't really rely on her teammates. So she transformed and lured Utena out into another fight, where the reluctant evil general created a candle monster.
じゃあサルファ、あなたを倒して戦いを終わらせます。
Mixing the common riders with the magical girls. I can respect some of your taste there, Utena. I mean, I certainly respect it more than some of her kinks. I mean, personally, I never got what was sexy about candle wax torture. But yeah, at this point, the joke had kind of grown thin, with Utena somehow outmaneuvering the magical girls and forcing them into submission, so really, we may as well start wrapping things up here and...
Okay, now you have my attention.
Yep, as it turned out, Karko was hiding a few things from her teammates, like the fact that she was strength from Black Rock Shooter, and that she was even more bloodthirsty than some of the villains they fought. Truth be told, this twist about her being a little dangerous psychopath was hinted at not just with the aforementioned foreshadowing, but also with the name of her alter ego. After all, while magenta and azure are just colors, sulfur is an actual tangible object. And sure, while it's yellow, thereby completing the 3 primary colors that even many Precure teams are composed of, it's also a chemical element with a low amount of toxicity, and being exposed to a little too much of it can be quite dangerous. Thus, Utena was forced to retreat and managed to do so thanks to some wax statues, though not before deciding on her own alter ego. Again, a clever name, as Basie is French for both a kiss and the thing that might come after the kiss if you're lucky. With that, the episode ended with Utena looking forward to these interesting new developments, same, while someone watched from above. As weird and even kind of pretentious as it might sound to say this about a show like this, there was some rather clever storytelling here. I mean, you might get a little distracted by some of the raunchiness that has been upped in a few areas compared to the original manga, but there are some actual developments here, especially in regards to Karuko. Sayo also got her time to, well, I probably shouldn't say shine, but I guess you could say expand her horizons? I actually really appreciate the fact that the show quickly changed things up before the joke ran thin by giving at least some different traits to Utena's victims. For Sayo, it was more on the comedic side of things, with the reveal that she was starting to get into this stuff, though it will also be used for some actual character development later. But of course, the real standout was the legit twist that Karuko was easily the most dangerous and even kind of manipulative of the supposed superheroines of the story. After all, she was hiding her big meaty claws, as apparently they would scare the kids, but even then she could have used them if her friends were in trouble, and yet never did, at least in these past 2 episodes, probably because she didn't actually see them as friends based on how much intel she was keeping to herself. It makes her easily the most interesting of the trio so far, and prevents the show from getting stale if there is a legit and dangerous challenge for Utena. In turn, our newly christened evil general was also getting development, as not only was she getting more into her job, but she was also living up to Venelita's initial proposal of bringing out the true greatness of the Tres Magia, thanks to Karuko, though Sayo might end up going in a slightly different direction. But still, overall, this was a well-told second episode that wisely decided to shake things up. It featured 2 magical girls start to reveal more of themselves, whilst the pink lead was just kind of on the sidelines for now. So yeah, typical pink behavior, but there's more to come soon. And yes, this is going to be a weekly review series, if only to break out the monotony of all the other stuff we review on the channel. We hope you all appreciate the change up, and maybe even a few others we might explore throughout 2024. So do look forward to it. Until then though, for now my friends, and
where'd the porn go?
yeah, I think you might be able to find your goods all the way across the Pacific. Good.